How do the First Aid Pigpatch, Lefty, and Scrap Baby levels work off camera in Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2? Let's break down each one. Starting on the first level, you'll find that Helpy here is pretty accident prone, and so you're tasked with the exciting job of performing surgical procedures depending on the symptoms he's facing. This can be as simple as cleaning a scraped knee and slapping a bandage on it, or even more complex surgeries like hitting him with a hammer. This can result in Helpy vocalizing his discomfort, which can attract unwanted visitors like our friend Pigpatch here. You'll have to silence Helpy when this happens by using a special mask. Otherwise, you'll ultimately be jump scared. After all your patients have been patched up, the night will be completed, and you can move on to the next. So heading back to the start of this night, we can pull the camera back and take a look at this location. There are actually two different sections to this level, despite gameplay only ever taking place inside the surgery room. From our usual perspective, we can see what looks like a hallway or another room of some kind beyond the curtains. This hypothetical room was a total lie though, and it's only a back wall with a false ceiling above it. The floor is covered in a black and white checkered pattern, and it's a bit strange because this floor extends beneath our usual gameplay area too. We just can't see it due to a second floor being placed over top of it. Inside the level, there are a handful of objects and assets scattered around us, including these freaky kid drawings. They're creepy from afar, and not much better up close either. Scrap Baby looks especially nightmare-inducing, and the drawings of Helpy in various tragic situations doesn't really help the fact. It's certainly not something I'd want to see during a routine checkup, but hey, at least you get a candy at the end. Speaking of Helpy though, we can find him hanging out behind the scenes before the minigame begins. As a matter of fact, we'll find all three of him. All three versions of the animatronic are currently placed out of bounds next to the vents, and is actually looking in good shape. It's kind of interesting knowing this though, because we know now the Helpy isn't even injured until he enters our care. The poor guy doesn't realize it, but he'd be perfectly healthy if he just stayed outside instead. Next to this set of characters, there's some stuff I found that I didn't immediately recognize. A couple of small objects that are currently floating out of bounds. The game is paused at the moment, but if we resume time, they will endlessly fall and reset to their starting positions. I don't recognize the black object here, but the rusty looking item turned out to be one of Helpy's lungs. A piece that I don't believe we'll interact with until much later in this game's hard mode level. It's just floating out here in an endless time loop. What even? When the game begins, one of these Helpies will be properly banged up and warped onto the operating table in front of the player. After the surgery is finished though, Helpy won't be moved back out of bounds as I first thought, but instead he's removed from the level entirely. Good for him too. This is probably the worst hospital I've ever seen. Now there's more to this minigame than honing our inner Dr. Traeger, and I'm of course referring to our encounters with Pigpatch. This guy's currently hanging out beneath our feet, T-posing in the void space outside the map. Pigpatch will only attack when drawn to our location by Helpy's shrieks, and he climbs through these vents beside us to do so. The vents of course don't lead anywhere, they just cut off outside the player's view, but there's something weird about this one. The vent is supposed to curve off to the side, but instead there's a solid wall here, which should hypothetically prevent anything from getting through. Well, don't go counting your bacon before it fries, because Pigpatch obviously just doesn't care. He'll turn around this corner and start clipping through it anyway. We can even see this from our usual perspective too, which almost makes it scarier. Pigpatch does as he pleases, and I am not going to be the one to question him. Before moving on from this level, we can take a quick look at his jump scare in bullet time, where he goes ham on the player, pun completely intended. In the following minigame, First Aid Lefty, we'll play essentially the same minigame, but instead of Pigpatch, we'll be dealing with Lefty instead. The difficulty is also raised here, since the vents are now open from the start, so there's a higher chance of encountering Lefty. Also, the TV can switch on automatically, which can attract him too, so you'll have to quickly grab the remote and turn it off to avoid him. So one of the first things I noticed while taking a look at this area is the absence of Helpy's robotic lung out of bounds. Of course, the character himself is still present in the same place as the previous level, but there are no animatronic pieces falling in an endless time loop. Of course, because we have a new enemy to face in this stage, Lefty has replaced Pigpatch beneath the level. He's T-posing directly beneath our feet and waiting for his favorite commercials to come on TV. Just the same as before, Lefty will enter the vents and begin his attack on the player whenever the sound is triggered inside. And in case you are curious, this is what his jump scare looks like in super slow-mo. Something else you may have noticed is that the vents now obey the laws of physics. Both vents are now properly modeled inside, and there are no walls blocking our view of their interior. That also means that Lefty doesn't have to Mario 64 before his way through the wall in order to enter the room, for better or worse. There are a couple of other changes to the map we can note as well, primarily the eroded appearance of the walls and the complete lack of vent covers during this night. Something I had not noticed during my first playthrough was this creepy dark puddle at the player's feet. The shimmer almost makes it look like oil, and I really hope that's all this is. It has a rippling appearance to it as well, almost like something just dropped through it. For the most part, this night is the same as the first, but new injuries can afflict poor Helpy. In this case, he needs a dose of rabid animal cure, but the way they pulled off the foaming effect is pretty neat. Up close, you can see that each section is a small piece of foam that extends and contracts at different intervals. The effect it creates is pretty convincing, but since we're currently watching in slow motion, it almost looks like teeth appearing and disappearing, which is pretty terrifying. There is not much else that changed between these two nights, so let's take a quick peek at the hard mode level as well. First Aid Scrap Baby. Being a hard mode level, this is of course the most difficult of the First Aid minigames. Scrap Baby is faster than the previous animatronics, and the advertisements that appear on our television are much more frequent, so you really have to stay on your toes now. There are also more ailments that can afflict Helpy, like replacing a seriously broken eye or giving him a new lung like we saw out of bounds earlier. So with the lights on, you can more clearly see how much more damage has been done to the office. There are several more of these markings on the wall now, and although it's hard to tell exactly what they are, they make the room all the creepier. The lighting will become more grim during this night as well, but you can't really see that at the moment, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Beneath the player, there is a genuine nightmare waiting for us, and that is Scrap Baby T-posing in all her rusty glory. Up close, she is seriously terrifying, and it's no easier to look at when she's crawling through the vents and into our workplace. Based on her appearance alone, she's the definition of nightmare fuel, and with a giant pair of chainsaw scissors on her right arm, it somehow elevates that factor even more. I don't think a puny hammer will be enough to defend myself either, so I'm thinking that 2-week notice might be a bit overdue. Something I realized during this minigame is that the vents aren't the only place enemies can enter the room from, and Scrap Baby appeared behind the curtain to attack us instead. Apparently, this can also take place in the previous nights as well, but for some reason, it only occurred during my face-off with Scrap Baby. Anyway, she starts this animation in the false room behind the curtains, where she's out of our sight, grabbing the curtain and peering inside at you for a bit before proceeding. She snips her pinchy thing at us a couple of times before entering the room and triggering a jump scare, which we can now check out in slow motion. This sequence is surprisingly brutal. After grabbing the player with a rusty hand, she'll reel back, swinging her weapon forward and giving you the worst haircut you've probably ever gotten.